should really just allow people to join after the hosts do this. I have to keep manually admitting everyone.
You want to make me a co-host, Senna, and I can watch for people too, I think, maybe.
Yeah. Or make co-host. All right. We'll welcome everyone to the Ceramic Community Call. I don't know what number this is now. We've been doing this for over a year, but excitingly, this is our first community call since we've sort of officially unveiled mainnet and the early launch program. We've had a few projects like Graven and GeoWeb going live in the previous weeks, but we've kind of kept that tight-lipped to just make sure that everything was working fine before we went more publicly. So thanks for joining. I think on the agenda roughly this week are a few new people joining to ask about integration help and how they can use Ceramic and IDX, which we'll definitely make time for. I know we have at least one demo, I think Danny said from FungiProof, and there's a ton of updates and progress from the 3Box Labs team that they want to share. So before we get started, are there any other things that people want to make sure we cover so we can be sure to make time for it? Feel free to just like dump stuff in the chat. If you're new, it'd also be good to hear what brings you by and what you're working on. Okay, hear that, Sergey. Maybe to ease us into what's been going on before we jump right in. Yeah, anyone new want to share what they're working on, what brings them by?
I'll jump in. Sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Thanks. We're both eager. Hey guys, so I'm building a sort of like an exploratory side project app that maybe will turn into something at some point. It's a digital tarot card app. So digital cards, if you're familiar with Hearthstone or MTG Arena, I want to build something that's kind of in that spirit, but for people that like digital tarot cards. And I'm building this on the internet computer from Dfinity. And I think that there's some overlap with Canvas and IDX that I'm interested in, exploring moving the project there. But the thing that I'm most interested about is IDX and the ability to kind of pass off my authentication and user system to something third party, something decentralized, something where somebody can own their identity. Now, internet computer does have a thing called internet identity, but it's lacking in a lot of ways. So I hope to sort of find out if we can potentially build something that would be interoperable with different identity platforms. Ideally, you can have distributed IDs that you can take anywhere on the internet, but I think we are a long ways from that. So that's something I'm interested in learning about. And I'm interested to see if I was to do an IDX solution, what the user experience would look like, because internet identity looks like garbage. So.
Double click on that. Cool. I'm just gonna drop your what you wanted to chat about, the integration between Dfinity and Ceramic IDX, and we'll be sure to cover that and talk about how we've integrated with some other chains like Near and Moonbeam.
Awesome.
Avalanche.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Where is this community calls? This is fucking shit. I don't fucking understand. It's like, what? People actually just like fucking talk about what they want to do? Like, what is this world?
Basically, that's what I love about it. What brings you by, Alejandra?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh shit, I'm so sorry. I thought
This is what happens on mainnet.
I am so sorry. Okay, fine. So I'll just put myself over here. So what brings me here? I'm super like new to all of this, and meaning even like DeFi and everything. And I was doing like a hackathon, and I I thought of like how can I add value to like the community and the community in general, like ecosystem, and so I came up with an idea that actually led me to Ceramic, even though you're not actually one of the sponsors for the Hack Money 2021. And I am sorry, I really thought I was just talking to myself because I do that a lot. So yeah, so I don't want to talk today because it's like I really just presented it like on Wednesday. I just submitted something, but I think it's an opportunity. I saw some like just quickly looking at where everything is today. I was like, oh, there's like an opportunity to do like privacy as a value as the self-selector for like just like the crypto values, Web3 values, etc., and really onboard other people that are just maybe not technical. And I saw the opportunity to like even with like BAT and Brave browser now that is like also, I was like, okay, if somebody cares about privacy, they're probably will on board. So I was thinking just more of like how to funnel new users into the ecosystem that you attract by values, and then you also then educate the other way as like, oh, you're earning BAT, what do I do with my BAT, and in ways to do something like that. So I was thinking of like a decentralized application. That's what I presented, a decentralized application to onboard in that way. And clearly it's not yet built, but I was doing it solo because I knew that I had a steep learning curve in that even though I'm a product manager, I've never done open source. So I was even learning by myself like Git and GitHub and everything. So I didn't want to bother people with like me being in their team in this hack. But so that's why I'm here.
Sorry, I was muted. Well, welcome. I'm sure that, if you're just paying attention, we'll cover a lot of stuff and have some other people share ideas too about how they're using it. So maybe that'll spark some ideas. Who else is on here?
Yeah, I can introduce myself. I'm the CEO of Engura, and I'm coming from the sales consulting. I run a sales consultancy for now 4 years and run many LinkedIn lead generation campaigns, and now on LinkedIn. And out of that experience, we developed a LinkedIn Messenger with sales intelligence. And more and more I understood, I faced the challenge that it's hard to build on top of LinkedIn, and for that matter, also on top of Facebook, on top of Instagram. Those kind of companies don't allow you really to contribute and change how LinkedIn in this case is designed. And I thought it would be really cool to not only provide a better messaging experience for salespeople, which is reducing the noise and increasing the signal, which is reducing the spam and making you focus on relevant conversations on LinkedIn, but also do more stuff, right? And this is how we came to think about data portability, data interoperability, and so the way we define our mission today is to say we want to bring 3 billion people in charge, in full control and ownership of their identity, social media identities and data, starting with LinkedIn. And this means we want to leverage our LinkedIn Messenger to help you as a LinkedIn user taking your LinkedIn identity and LinkedIn data and then manage it in the way you want. And this means, sharing with apps and users that you want under conditions that is a win-win. And that means in this world, when the users are in charge of their LinkedIn identity and data, anybody in the world can fork LinkedIn and contribute and design. And that means developing spam filters, developing better hiring tools, better marketing tools, analytics, etc., etc. So I'm coming from that perspective, and what I love about IDX and Ceramic is that you guys seem to develop something that is this data portability is in the center and user in control of the data being in the center. And I have, I guess, 3 questions that I would love to ask to understand if that is a technology that is a good match for us.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of opportunity in that space. I know some other projects in the community are also thinking along similar lines of decentralizing the recruiting process and sort of making like sort of recreating various aspects of LinkedIn on the decentralized web in a more fair and sort of, like you said, less noisy, more high signal type of a way. Yeah, and happy to answer and sort of like walk through ways that you could use it. But we'll come, if that's okay with you, we can come back to some of that just so we
Yep.
give
Yeah, thanks.
everyone else a chance to chime in with why they're here if they feel free to share.
So I guess since I got caught like talking on the thing, I kind of like felt like I needed to talk. But like the reason I thought of like a ceramic, by the way, is like because of the stream data that it already has. So I was thinking of like I would think of like a tech stack and what I could like compose with what exists. And even though you guys weren't like a sponsor right now, I was thinking of like ceramic is like the perfect technology for like then also doing IPF. And I was thinking something very similar is like creating that like there's that creator economy right now. I'm not a creator or a person who's like, but there's so much onboarding of like in Brave and Twitter, and there's this new feature in the last month of like calling it like tip. I was thinking, well, what if I actually have my identity? My identity is private. I own my identity. I control who can see what part of it. And I created like a prototype of like a 3-page, it's like one landing page in Web3 that you come and arrive and you're like, okay, I want to create my profile. Then you have like the second page is like you're linked to like, this is all my information, my medical, my social security, everything, right, in buckets. And then you can actually then authorize what kind of information you would allow somebody else to see, and then creates like your little like identity cards and that identity card. And that's what I was thinking of, like ceramic, IPFS, and some of those like that's why I'm here today.
Great. Yeah, use cases that are super core to why we created ceramic in the first place. Some background, like we used to work on a product called 3box, and we really were just doing profiles for Ethereum users, and we saw like a whole need for a more robust identity and data management infrastructure that's cross-chain and multi-account and completely permissionless. And so yeah, that's actually what brought us here too.
Oh, that's great. So that's why I'm here. And I'm sorry for having rambled. I didn't know what's heard. I'm so embarrassed now.
No problem. I love the honesty. And they were actually good things. So yeah, nothing to be ashamed
Yeah,
of.
it's like, but that's actually why I'm here. It's like I'm just like, oh my God, where have I been all this time? I was like, I've been in traditional finance, and it's like, I'm like, oh my God, this is so awesome. So I'm sorry if I sound a bit excited.
All good. Anyone else care to share before we sort of like jump into some quick updates on our side? And is Danny, who's supposed to present from G-Proof? Maybe we can do that. Oh, Brandon. Mike.
And
Cool.
Mike.
Yeah, hey guys. I'm Brandon with Fungi Proof. I think we're obviously going to do a quick demo, so I won't spend too much time setting up the product, but I'll just say hi quick and then let Mike probably take it over here.
Yeah, hey guys. I wasn't sure if we should jump in because I didn't want to repeat myself there, but yeah, thanks for inviting us to this community call. This is super cool. I didn't realize you guys were doing this. Is this on, is this like every week?
What is it now? I think it's bi-weekly, every 2 weeks.
It's every third Friday right now, but we'll probably move it to bi-weekly soon.
Okay, gotcha. Nice. Super cool. Yeah, so we actually have a little deck that we could show. I don't know if we want to do a screen share here. I'm not sure I have permissions, but
Yeah, you should be able to request it.
okay, cool. All right, you guys got that?
Yep.
Awesome. So yeah, we figured we'd just talk a little bit about specifically, you know, what Fungi Proof is, and then how we're using ceramic, mostly in the background for now. But yeah, so we're Mike and Brandon. We run a product studio called Many Uses. It's basically a design development agency where we've created tools that can help other startups spin up products. But we, in the past, obviously have been in blockchain. So with the NFT craze going on, we had a bunch of friends and individuals reaching out to us, like asking us about what NFTs are and how they work, and some people who've bought some that were, you know, worried about whether or not their image would disappear and things like that. So we started creating some content around like what an NFT is, how they work, and ways to get more information about your NFT. And that sort of evolved into this concept launch of like a grading tool. So the idea was that we could just plug in your OpenSea URL or your address and your token ID and check out like what your metadata is, and if it's on IPFS or Google Cloud, things like that. We also, prior to FungiProof and many uses, we were actually the co-founders of Radar Relay, which was one of the first decentralized exchanges on the 0x protocol. And then before that, we were in some of the NFT conversations really early on. We built like a concept project called Initial Pixel Offering, which was like basically a ripoff of the Million Pixel page, if you guys are familiar with that, which was super fun to build, but it got hacked after like 30 days. So lesson learned there. And then we've also produced some of the educational content that you may have seen floating around, weef.io and erc721.org. So yeah, that's a little bit of our background there. And then, so the idea of FungiProof, I mentioned a little bit there, but it's basically like a grading, and we've tacked on this new aspect of enrichments. So it's a grading enrichments platform where we can tie cross-chain data about a non-fungible token, which is stored immutably. Obviously, we're using Ceramic for that, and it's publicly verifiable. Same thing. So the main idea is that you can take external data and tie it to an NFT. Right now, you know, obviously an NFT is immutable. You all know that. Once they're created, they are what they are. And we felt that there was also a need to kind of be able to tie additional information about them, like maybe a big news event or something along those lines. Like, you know, if you could tie one of the articles about the Beeple sale, for example, would be really cool, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of the idea. We got it from this concept of a third-party grading service, which is, if anyone's familiar with like the collectibles space, if you have, you know, sports cards or coins, all kinds of things, there's these companies called third-party grading services where you can send in your coin and you can have them, you know, check the quality and make sure it's not counterfeit and put it in a case. So that was kind of the idea that we're going for, is we want to be able to do that in a digital sense for your NFTs. And when you encase your NFT, we have sort of a new standard we're trying to build that is a smart contract that ties the grade and the information about the NFT to the original NFT. So yeah, I don't have to repeat myself here, but the idea is it's sort of a 3-step process. You got grading, so you'll submit your token and we'll surface the underlying technical information about the token as much as we can gather based on you know, community input, and then also just some tools that we've built in the background. And one of those that we're built on top of is the graph. So we do have like NFT resolvers that basically pull as much information as we can from available graph subgraphs. And then we can encase your token. So what we want to do is make it so you can purchase a case, and we might have, this is sort of our V2 that's coming up soon here, but we might have like various different rarity. So you could purchase, you know, like the CryptoPunk case, for example, or the Bored Ape case, and then you can encase your token in something that's kind of matches the NFT itself. And then the third concept is the ability to enrich. So this is where things get a bit more complicated, but we'd love to do things like, you know, archive an asset that's on GCP, for example. So if your image is in Google, we put it into Arweave or into Filecoin or something to try to make it a bit more redundant there. And then another thing we had done was we did the Green NFT Hackathon. And out of that, we did some research just on the carbon footprint of NFTs. And we started working somewhat close with the Regen Network. So the idea is hopefully we can allow you to purchase, you know, carbon offsets, for example, and offset your token and use that as like a badge or an enrichment that you can tie to the NFT. So there's a bunch of ideas. We're exploring all sorts of things. And if anyone else has ideas about cool things they'd like to see, let us know for sure. So here's a technology stack. I kind of talked through most of that already, but we've got, the protocol level, Arweave, we're looking at Filecoin, Ceramic, obviously, EVM, and then we want it to be cross-chain. So we might have to launch enrichments on each chain that the NFT is on. So we're initially looking at just EVM-based chains. So we can do Matic or we can do Ethereum. And then in the interface layer, we're working on an SDK, an API, and then also we've got our resolvers, which will be fully open source. Same with the SDK, so people can help contribute there. And then obviously the front end, we've got the app, and then we're going to have, we currently have an embed, but in the future we want it to be a little bit more robust. So like a marketplace, for example, could add a little badge next to NFTs to be able to verify grades or information there. So yeah, I can demo what we've done so far. It's basically our V1, and it's sort of a proof of concept, but for now we are pulling a bunch of this information, then we're storing it in Ceramic. We're using a 3ID, but we're actually doing that server side, which I know is kind of against the ethos there, but eventually what we'd like to do is tie that information to the actual NFT's DID once that's available. Yep, so that'll be the plan. But yeah, so I can show you this real quick. I did a couple different ones here. So here's a Bored Ape that grades a little bit higher. So you can see that one gets a C. We kind of talk through, we're calling it our rubric, and there's different aspects about the NFT. This is our beta version. We're looking at making this much more in depth and providing like a much more just a more in-depth rubric with better scoring. But you guys can, if you want to check it out, you can read through here and kind of see where we're headed there. And then if you click view data, you can see the initial snapshot. And then you notice here, we've got the registry, which points out the actual Ceramic tile that gets generated there. So just as an example, I'll hop over, and I'm connected to, we're on Clay testnet for now, but I'll just pop that up. So you can see how the metadata and all the scoring information, everything is then tied into Ceramic. So yeah, we think it'd be really cool to be able to have like a little, view on the public registry type concept, where then you can bounce to the, like the Tile Explorer, for example, and just view that information.
Yeah, that's super cool. Also like a great use.
Awesome.
How has it been, like, have you been having conversations with platforms that are interested in sort of like surfacing some of this information to their users, or like where are you at in the full cycle?
Yeah, so we haven't dove into that quite as much yet. We've gotten a lot of feedback like from the Arweave team. They're really excited about it. That's kind of the permaweb thing. But for the most part, we've been talking to like artists and creators for now that find it really useful in terms of, understanding what their NFT actually is. And the grade has been a little controversial for sure, just because, it's a lot of NFTs, and the way that they're built isn't perfect and doesn't match, the standards that it should, like the schemas that were supposed to be designed originally. Kind of everybody has veered off and done their own thing. So it's hard to sort of get people excited when you plug in your token and every single one of them gets a D, but yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah, I guess, how do you imagine that, like the grading system evolving? Is that something that you guys are going to manage, or do you imagine a future where that's like community driven, and like, I don't even know how it evolves over time potentially?
Yeah, no, that's an awesome question. We've been sort of playing around with this idea of, like a DAO type concept. So if we'd be able to, at least at the start, we'd probably do like Fungi proof improvement proposals. And then, just on GitHub, we could have the community talk about, what makes the most sense. How should we grade these things? And eventually, maybe you can stake tokens and people can vote on how that should be implemented. So we're exploring that idea. I think in the near term, we just are going to try to get as much feedback from, platforms and individuals, and try to implement what we can. But yeah,
it's also, it's a little tough. We're kind of torn between like, you know, it should be tough to get a good grade. That's kind of the point. So it's like this, from a marketing perspective, it's a difficult thing to sell, I suppose, until we had enough clout to actually, you know, make people strive for a higher grade. And up until that point, I think people just get kind of annoyed that their tokens score so low, but that kind of should be the point, I guess. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's really important for us to try to be like as agnostic as possible. So most of the scoring that we're doing right now, we're just surfacing like, hey, the only reason it scored low is because it's decentralized storage versus not. You know, so we're really trying to just you know, use the technical aspects as how it grades instead of an opinionated approach, right?
Yeah, I mean that's like people are always going to complain when there's like a single, like users want a single score to know, but like people that are
Right.
diving in more detail, like they actually want to know like which piece is the reason for the bad grade, or like would rather grading it on specific aspects. And I feel like that's always going to be a tension. Like,
Yep.
So something to just figure and kind of like be cool with living with, at least until behavior of the underlying token issuers changes.
Yeah, for sure. We also kind of a cop out, but we thought about like maybe you grade based on qualities that you care about. You know, like if you choose immutability, that's the most important thing, or you choose, you know, energy efficiency, that's the most important thing. The only issue there is then maybe you could get every single token to grade well, but yeah, definitely lots of ideas there.
So what is this interesting stuff I see down in V2? Using ceramic schemas for metadata and contract ABI?
Yeah, so we're doing that a little bit, but the idea is that, you know, right now there's only one metadata standard for the most part, and it fits really well with like media-based NFTs. But in the future, there's going to be a number of different types of NFTs, at least as long as the future that we all want to happen happens. But the idea would be that we can create, you know, public schemas that others can help contribute for different platforms. And then we use those schemas to validate the data against them, basically. So that would be, you know, using AJV, we can actually like pull out how many errors there were and then use that as like a score system. So that's the idea for the schema validation. And then the contract ABIs, same sort of thing. So, you know, a bunch of different NFTs publish their ABIs publicly, or if we can get platforms to submit them to us, then we can generate a schema for those ABIs and do the same sort of thing, so that we could have like a base expectation about what a ABI should look like, and then we can validate against that in order to generate some sort of score. Yeah, and then I can keep going there. The IDX-based user profile, we'd obviously like to use that in the future. We once we have sort of the background of the system in place, the idea would be that you could, you know, then kind of customize your NFT profile. So as an individual, if I own an NFT I'm really excited about, I can come in here and like equip different enrichments, for example. So say I purchase the green enrichment, I can change what my case looks like, and I can modify the profile itself. Or there are certain things like you could add a secret message or something that gets unlocked for users as you transfer the token to someone else, right?
Yep.
That's super cool. And like for there are a bunch of platforms building like NFTs for physical assets. So like you could use your system to like, oh, I want to have a review of this thing, or like have an audit of the, you know, quality of the physical thing. So that's super cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for sharing, guys.
Yeah, of course.
So when can we expect to, when do you need to go to mainnet? When can we expect to start playing around with it and use it?
Well, we'd actually like to go to mainnet for the current implementation as soon as possible, just so we can, you know, have a link and bounce to the Explorer. But for the V2, we're probably, I don't want to give any hard deadlines, but I'd say we're probably at least 6 weeks out from that, something like that.
Great. Yeah, and we're sponsoring a hackathon in a few weeks, and we're hoping to have at least some of the prerequisites in place for NFT DID provider.
Okay.
So, you know, no, it's not going to be shipped exactly then, but it'll be a lot closer than it is. And so hopefully, maybe someone might put it over the line during the hackathon or something like that.
Awesome. Yeah, I know I had been trying to help out a little bit with the resolver. I think that's pretty close there, but
Yep.
I know you guys got some work to do on the provider side.
Yeah, we just need to basically review your code and run the test locally. Hopefully we'll be able to do that ASAP.
Cool. Yeah, and let me know if I can help contribute on the provider side. Happy to jump in there.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, let's find some time, because that should be fairly simple and lightweight. So shoot me a message.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do.
Sweet. This is cool. And of course it looks great. So
Thanks.
Brandon, good job, I guess.
Sweet. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. It's exciting. I'm pumped by all the NFT use cases that are popping up on Ceramic, like this and GeoWeb, and there are a few others. I personally can't wait to see NFT did supported and all the things that will unlock too, but soon enough. Cool. Maybe I guess 3Box Labs team. I don't want to take too much time. I want to make sure that we save time for like answering questions and helping with some potential integrations, but maybe do we want to just like do a quick update on progress, like what's happened? I mean, obviously we announced mainnet, but what else is going on behind the scenes? Maybe Spencer, what's up with the protocol?
Yep. There's a few different things happening on the protocol team. I've been working on improvements to our anchor service that will allow other people to run anchor services and have them not get confused and clobber each other's state, all sort of pushing towards the vision of the fully open mainnet, where anyone runs their own nodes and their own anchor services, where users are able to run whatever they need to be like fully contributing members of the network. So continuing to push towards that as a high level goal. We have Mosin has been doing some work on just performance improvements, just looking at optimizing some of the low hanging fruit around just like how we interact with IPFS and just some inefficiencies in the code paths, just to make things perform a little bit better. Sergey's been doing some work. I don't know if you want to talk about it at all, Sergey, around like key revocation, which is also a prereq for NFT did support.
Yeah, actually, so I think that's kind of significant to raise. So this has been like a bug in Ceramic, which is basically if you have a DID that supports rotating keys, basically revoking old keys, then if someone steals your old key, they should not be able to author commits and update the stream with your old key. But there's basically a bug in Ceramic that kind of allowed you to use the old key to make updates though. And so in order to fix that, that was not only a bug in Ceramic, it was also like a lack of functionality in the DID core specification. So that took us down the path of first solving the issue in the DID core spec, which took a lot of back and forth with the standards body group there. And now finally we got to like implement that in our DID resolvers and functionality there. And now this week we kind of, Sergey put everything together and like make the protocol actually use this feature. So that just got merged into the develop branch, I think yesterday or maybe today. And so that will be out soon.
Cool. Yeah, and then I think just the only other thing from the protocol side is just in general having a lot of conversations about how best we can start getting more people onto mainnet as soon as possible and make sure that things scale well and nothing breaks. So that's basically our number one focus on the team right now.
Val, anything else other than that to call out for infrastructure?
Yeah, I mean, the last thing that Spencer said is also on the infra side, what the focus is right now. Basically, we have our own kind of internal implementation running Ceramic in the cloud that people are using on Clay and Mainnet right now. but also making sure that we have a way, an easy way for people to be able to run their own nodes. So that includes just like making sure they know like how to configure things properly, and we can like also advise on some best practices there. And then besides that, mostly the infra work has been like kind of internal like processes, so like cleaning up like our CI/CD pipelines, things like that. But we also just onboarded, or in the process of onboarding Mahendra to the team, and we'll be helping on the infra side too. So that's really exciting. We're glad to have him. And then the last thing that I was going to call out is on the roadmap, we are going to start exploring running Go IPFS. So they basically the IPFS team is about to merge IPLD Prime, which includes the codec that we need for Ceramic, the DACosate codec. And that will enable us to actually run the Go version. So on the infra side, we'll be starting to do like our initial testing with that and making sure that we can kind of replicate some of our existing configuration with running Go. So yeah.
And on the Glaze team, which we're calling it now, which is basically like developer experience tools and stuff to make it delightful to build on Ceramic. We've gotten a bunch of feedback from early users that 3ID Connect can be better. The user experience can be better, more trustworthy, like not so sort of like bland and scary. So we're doing some prerequisite work to sort of refactor that code base, make the front ends like more configurable so you can customize colors to match your app and clean up some messaging and increase transparency and user guidance as they're like giving permissions or, you know, linking their blockchain account to their DID, stuff like that. Also like showing user profiles when they're authenticating in the apps like favicon or icons, so you kind of like know what you're doing. And yeah, on the IDX side, we're basically cleaning up some of that tooling. It won't be released immediately, but we're creating some new packages. Current IDX constants will in the future become dev tools. So we'll be introducing a new mono repo called Glaze, which will basically like contain all these like packages that make it easy to do stuff. Another one that we're working on is a data models package. So as you're, you know, like thinking about your application's data model, obviously right now when you want to build with IDX and you want to use schemas and definitions, you have to make sure that those are available on the network you're building with, so your app can use them at runtime. And data models will sort of let you, you know, define everything you need and alias everything, so it's like easy to use and you don't encounter any errors if like during testing and development, for example, like your schema might not be published or you might not have pinned it and it disappeared. And so this sort of cleans all of that up and makes sure that when you want to do things, you know, by like writing to records or writing to streams, that all the schemas and the data models that you need are available. Ideally, also in the future, we'll make it easy to share data models across projects, sort of like you have in, I forget what it is, like TypeScript. You have like types and you just install them. That would be pretty cool too. And yeah, I think that's mostly it. And there's, you know, we've been working with a few other partners on, you know, having them implement other profiles, infrastructure, and other ways to sort of manipulate your identity, like your core identity information. So making sure that they're successful and working with them on various standards. Yeah. Questions? That was like a lot. Cool. So now I think that's pretty much all from our side. I guess an announcement is, like I quickly mentioned, we're hosting a hackathon. I think it'll be probably the first 2 weeks in August on Gitcoin. So it'll be pretty open. And, you know, we're thinking now about bounties and things to put up. So if you already have ideas of what you want to work on, or things you'd love to see us offer bounties for, like, please just ping us in Discord with any ideas. We'll try to include them if we can. Obviously, we want to post bounties that people want to pick up. So would love input there. And yeah, I think now we can probably, yeah, so Danny just posted the link to the Ceramic hackathon. Yeah, so now I guess we can move to certain questions, I guess in the order. So Slava, we've got you second, also to talk about sort of the redesign of the LinkedIn experience too, and how that could work. But before we get to that, how do you say your name? Is it Organ?
Yeah, it's Yorn.
Yorn.
Yorn would be the phonetic pronunciation. Yeah.
All right. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I guess you want to chat, like what would be most helpful to you to chat about, like how IDX and Ceramic could work with Dfinity accounts, or
Yeah.
any sort of architectural
Yeah.
stuff?
Cool. So I'll probably keep this inquiry fairly short just because I'm pretty early on my journey of exploring IDX. So I'm going to imagine that I'm at the place where a lot of my questions could be answered with kind of existing documentation. But essentially what I want to do is to try to build out like a quick prototype of, I've got my app with internet identity as the identity provider. I'd like to do, what would that look like if I had IDX as my identity provider? That would be kind of like the first milestone that I'd be interested to try to hit. So if anybody has thoughts on that, or maybe just a link like, here, buddy, go like look at this example, that would be fantastic. Secondarily to that, I am, so the Dfinity developer call is actually shortly after this one. And there probably won't be any time to talk about it today because people are consumed with other stuff, but there is a group of people there who are interested in, how we're going to tackle decentralized identity sort of within that platform. And I think starting to look towards what integration between the identities might look like, and any good examples of, you mentioned how other chains should approach that type of thing. From what I've heard, there's like 400 different permutations of different DID-based identity platforms out there, which was a shocking number to hear from somebody that works over at Fission. If you guys are familiar with Fission, I'm sure, yeah. So, I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but essentially at this point, I love talking to people who are more mature with their knowledge in this space than I am right now. And any examples that anybody can sort of like point me to is always hugely appreciated.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess to keep it short, like in principle, Ceramic can theoretically support any DID method. So Ceramic like doesn't really care about, what DID provider you use or where the document is stored, or, as long as it gets added to the Ceramic code base, as long as Ceramic can resolve the DID, then it can work. How we've approached and set it up sort of with other blockchains is we have this notion in IDX of being able, you can think of IDX effectively as a logical data store for a DID. And that data store is organized sort of like based on data descriptions and definitions, kind of like, keys and objects, and the keys are, references to some schema and definition. And one of those types of definitions of what's a type of record that you can store in IDX is the 3ID keychain. And so what that keychain does is it effectively allows you to authenticate your DID using any sort of cryptographic wallet that can create deterministic signatures. And so really like that allows the authentication piece. So then really like, when a user shows up to your app, they just sign in with their blockchain wallet, and, behind the scenes, they can authenticate their DID, which sort of authorizes their data transactions. And the other piece to that is there's what we call similarly to the keychain, you can store a record called your crypto accounts. And it basically, stores a list of links to streams on Ceramic that contain proofs which bind the DID to that blockchain account publicly. So you can think of the keychain as like the authentication secret manager, and the crypto accounts is sort of like links to proofs that allow you to like resolve a DID based on a blockchain account. So you could, you know, look up, you can call IDX get basic profile, then like a Dfinity account, and it will behind the scenes resolve the DID that it's linked to, and then you can query its other linked information in IDX. So that's like kind of a high level at the integration. And yeah, we've done it with Near. Polkadot's been in the works, but their wallets, the Polkadot.js doesn't really support the key type for deterministic signatures. So we've been working with them on getting that fixed. You know, we support basically right now all EVM chains. So you can Moonbeam on Polkadot works, Avalanche, which uses EVM works. And it's fairly trivial to add support for a new blockchain. It's like a couple modules that you just have to write, and then it will work. So yeah, that's a quick and dirty, but there's definitely like a ton more resources that we can share.
That sounds really neat. So would it make sense for perhaps like early community milestones for the Dfinity developer group to be a module that allows, you know, like a proof of like, this is your internet identity that'll integrate with Ceramic, and then we're kind of tied in and can be on the keychain. There's also 1 or 2 wallets that are being built out by different community members, so they could have a similar milestone for specific integration with their wallet. But it sounds like that would be a good thing to bring up with that working group.
Yeah, we've been like roughly tied in with some of the DevRel people at Dfinity, but less involved directly with the community. So we'd be interested in figuring out how we could plug in there.
Yeah, I think we'll actually, one of us will be doing a tech talk as part of one of their Friday calls. Probably not next week, but later in the month. So yeah, I know that there's interest there. I think the primary auth in Dfinity is WebAuthn, right? Yeah. So I think that, like, as Sana said, it's fairly simple modules to add support for new blockchain. They had a core dev member thinking about how to tie that into the WebAuthn work. He actually left though. So I think that like stalled a little bit last month, but I know that there's, this would be really cool if you bring this up and see where there's appetite, and we can bring the two communities together. Trying to do something for the hackathon next month could be interesting.
Yeah, I'll definitely be looking forward to your guys' talk over on that call. And you know, I'll try to find some room in there. I don't know if anybody's watching that community at all, but everybody's super fired up over this Badlands concept right now, which is just kind of pointless in my perspective. But anyways, thanks very much for all that, guys.
Yeah, anytime. All right, cool. Slava.
Yes, thank you. I have posted 3 questions already here. I can talk through them, but before, maybe I saw that you have this identity link services, and I saw that, you know, there is Telegram supported, etc. I wonder if LinkedIn will be supported, or if or we can easily add that. And then I guess my questions are related to personal data, because if we store LinkedIn data and maybe other social network data with Ceramic, then there are many questions around privacy, encryption, and you know, how the user actually handles that. And yeah, if you want, I can talk through them. I posted them in chat.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy to work through some of those. So I mean, DIDs are, I guess, so to recap, I don't know if people can see these on video, but what are the disadvantages and limitations of having one DID per user instead of many? Can DIDs be encapsulated? So the answer really is it depends on your implementation of DIDs. So there's nothing explicit saying that I as a user need to only have one. In fact, 3ID Connect, the authentication SDK that a lot of Ceramic devs use, like lets users, when they go to log in with a new blockchain account, it prompts them if they want to link it to an existing DID or create a new one for that account. So you kind of like can segregate concerns along DIDs. But additionally, I guess you can think about, like doing encryption and access control on the data that the DID is storing in better ways. So it's not all publicly discoverable and it's not all or nothing permissions. You can sort of lock down various aspects of your, logical set entirety of your data, so that you're only sort of selectively sharing pieces with people as they request it. That's not fully implemented in Ceramic yet, but it's something that, after we onboard all the projects to mainnet, that will be sort of focused on, is improving the encryption and privacy aspect of.
And you're talking about, I think you call it data policies or something, this access permissions, right?
Mhm.
Right, and that is what you're saying is it's in the development and will be part of the framework where I can easily add not only a definition and a record, but somehow the permissions, and they could be checked.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome.
And there's and like right now with IDX, it's permissions are granted like at runtime, like the app requests permissions and the user gives it to them. But when the user leaves, like the app doesn't have persistent access to that. Like there may be models in the future where a user can grant an application persistent access to say read some of their data. So even when the user is not, interacting with the application, that app can have access to data, which is useful in various cases. So there's like a lot to do there. Yeah.
And if I understood you correctly, one can have many DIDs and one could encapsulate. So one DID contains another DID and they're verified if I want. Right.
Mhm.
And just is there not a privacy concern that, once an application has access to some part of information that it somehow figures out my data and everything else connected, and there is a leakage of information?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely like an area of research, even within W3C and DIDs right now, is like how to do that. I think part of the solution is likely technical, and part of the solution is likely legal and sort of like handled by external governance. And so I think, in the future, the DID space will converge around some kind of framework for sort of like like trying to incorrectly store and maintain information about a user when you weren't given permission. But yeah, I mean, definitely when you're like linking and encapsulating DIDs, there's
one always knows what DID is linked, and then everything else I see as well, what is linked to that DID, correct?
Yeah, at least public information, like encrypted information is generally would be opaque. And part of the policy of accessing encrypted information would be like you don't store it, right? And so you wouldn't be able to move up the tree, so to speak, like to other DIDs that may be linked.
And I think this is related to my third question, which is, encryption. I understand the index of being just the representer of the I understand what one can store the information there, but it's just a representer saying, okay, this definition, and then it's stored there, and I can change where it's stored. And I guess if there are entities that now can decrypt that, and in the future maybe can more entities that can decrypt, I can still encrypt further where the data is actually stored and then change that, right? Or how would you mitigate this risk and explain the users that it's secure using the index?
Yeah, so it's definitely like when you're thinking about, the question generally comes down to how secure is information that's publicly available, even if it's encrypted. Like encrypted information can, theoretically be broken by certain entities. I think that's where IDX becomes interesting in the fact that it doesn't require you store the actual data in the records. Like you said, it can just be a pointer to some.
What? You're froze. Hey, you just froze.
Lost it
for a few seconds there, Senna.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, hopefully it's okay. Well, so on I'll keep hoping that I don't freeze, but with IDX, you can, add a reference and a definition to some data to the user, and that reference just contains a pointer to like a server that's traditionally access controlled. So depending on the sensitivity of data, you may choose different places where it resides. Like certain information you may want to store publicly on public networks, like a profile or something. Some information you might want to store encrypted on public networks for replication and availability. And some information like my DNA or my genome or like some really sensitive data, you probably want to store encrypted on a server behind some traditional authentication mechanism. But I think the important piece is that IDX really serves, the index part of IDX really serves as this single place where I can go to figure out where all this stuff lives, rather than necessarily needing to contain it all in that object as well. So it's kind of like, if I want to interact with your data in any way, IDX provides like that one place you go to look, and it may take you elsewhere, but it's like the first point of reference.
Yeah, and I think it's connected to the second question where, I'm thinking okay, data portability is awesome. I can see the definitions and I can have a control and change where it is stored, potentially like not LinkedIn server, but my computer or somebody else, an application or something. But then if I control that with my DID, I probably, and I'm not, normal LinkedIn user is not a technical user. How do we expect him to manage this index? Maybe not now, but in the future, can I delegate this access to somebody?
Yeah, totally. So there's been a project in our community that's working on something similar. Like the index is just a data structure that is controlled by a DID. And that DID can be controlled by any number of private keys, right? Like, as we said, you can add one or more blockchain accounts that can all control that DID. And what one other project in the community is exploring is saying, can a user grant our service like agency permissions? Basically, can a user add our service as an authorized writer or controller of the DID? And by doing that, you basically establish a trusted relationship between the user that controls the data and this service that can act on behalf of the user. And so that enables a whole bunch of automation of like permissions management and delegation. So you can basically like the user can add agents to act on their behalf, but could also remove them and then take back full control of their identity.
And this means, maybe the last question for me, this means would we need to wait a bit until these agents are fully developed, and then maybe also this identity link services support LinkedIn specifically, and when could this happen?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say you need to wait for the agents. I mean, that's like a team is working on that, but it's like not really core. I mean, if a user has a blockchain wallet, then there's really no overhead to managing the index. Sort of the index gets handled behind the scenes by IDX whenever they do anything. So like whenever an app says like write data, a user, it actually gets handled by 3ID Connect, which behind the scenes signs the data, and then it gets added to the index automatically. The user doesn't really have to like do anything. But the identity link service can easily support new things. Like LinkedIn would be fairly easy because it's a public API, I think. And so a user would just need to like post their DID in a message to their LinkedIn. And then identity link service could, easily be extended to support that. A lot of people are just making PRs to identity link. So like we funded a grant to build Twitter and GitHub, Twitter and GitHub. And then a bunch of other community members have just added like Instagram and Telegram and Discord and I think like Discourse. So if that's something you wanted, we'd encourage you to just like take a look and see how simple that would be. But also something we could consider bountying as part of the Ceramic Hackathon in a few weeks.
Awesome. Thanks. So next, just to understand, how does one get help when we, designing generally and having questions?
Yeah, I would say just ping us in Discord, and if we ever need to just like hop on a design call or something, like we're open to do that. Or, you know, we work well in GitHub issues and Notion documents and any sort of thing that we can collaborate on. So if you're, when you're thinking through those things, like don't hesitate to reach out.
Thanks. Thanks.
Cool. And Alejandra, sorry, we're running a bit low on time. But is there anything else you want to chat about?
No, this is like, I'm very new to all of this. So it's like, no, if anything, I feel so embarrassed. I just like, you heard what I think. So it's like, but yes, I would love to connect later. Mine is like in very basic prototype, but it is actually leveraging those ideas of like the assignment and the permissioning. It's like, here's my data, my real key, most personal identifiable data. If it's medical, if it is like my, know your customer. So every time that you go to create any new account, someone, they can say like, yeah, point to that data, and then it's already verifiable instead of actually having to replicate it multiple times. So I would definitely love to stay in touch. And yes, today I was just gonna stay chatting, like hiding, but I guess I was not able to.
No problem. Welcome to the community.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for joining, everyone. And I guess we'll see you on Discord and at the next call.
Thanks all.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks very much.